cops tormented a waitress and burned her with hot coffee until a Navy SEAL and his dog intervened. They thought the badge made them untouchable. They thought fear kept people silent. They thought one waitress with burn scars on her arm would be easy to break. They were wrong, because the man sitting in the corner booth wasn't just another drifter passing through. And the dog lying silent at his feet wasn't just a pet. Before we begin, tell us where you are watching from in the comments below. And if you want to support the channel, please subscribe and hit the like button on this video. The Oregon coast in late October wore its isolation like armor. Pine Haven clung to the edge of the continent, where dense forests of Douglas fir met rocky shoreline in perpetual conflict. Fog rolled in from the Pacific each evening, thick and cold, swallowing sound until the world narrowed to arm's-length visibility. Rain fell not in draughts but in sheets that hammered metal roofs and turned dirt roads to mud. The town had died slowly after the mill closed 5 years back, bleeding population until only 3,000 souls remained, scattered between the shuttered main street and the logging roads that disappeared into mountains. It was the kind of place people left, not the kind they came to, unless they were running from something worse than economic collapse. Marcus Reed had chosen Pine Haven for exactly that reason: isolation, distance, silence. At 37, he carried 12 years of Navy SEAL deployments in the set of his shoulders and the watchful calculation in his green eyes. He stood 6'2", 210 pounds of lean muscle that moved with an economy of motion that spoke of 10,000 hours of training. His dark hair was cropped military short, premature gray threading through the temples. 3 days of stubble shadowed a weathered face that had seen too much sun in desert countries whose names he couldn't speak about. He'd rented a cabin 8 miles outside town, up a fire road that required 4-wheel drive after the first mile. No neighbors, no questions, just silence and the work of figuring out who Marcus Reed was when he wasn't hunting threats in the dark. The nightmares had followed him from Kandahar and Ramadi and a dozen other places where violence was currency and hesitation meant death. He still woke at 0300, heart hammering, hand reaching for a sidearm no longer on the nightstand. Still cataloged exits and threats in every room he entered. Still heard the screams. The VA doctors had names for it, medications that made him feel like he was watching his life through foggy glass. He'd stopped taking them after 2 months. Better to feel everything sharp and clear than nothing at all. He wasn't alone in his self-imposed exile. Titan lay on the cabin floor near the wood stove, 95 pounds of German Shepherd with black and tan coloring and a distinctive scar on his left shoulder where shrapnel had found him in Helmand Province. 4 years old, retired from service same day as Marcus. The dog was not a pet, but a partner. They'd hunted bomb makers together, cleared buildings together, slept in the same mud together. Titan responded to commands in German, moved like liquid shadow, and possessed an intelligence that bordered on unsettling. He could read human intention in micro-expressions and body language, could detect threat before it materialized into action. His eyes, dark and alert, missed nothing. When Marcus couldn't sleep, Titan didn't either. They kept watch together. 2 warriors waiting for a war that hadn't followed them home yet. Marcus had fallen into a routine over the 14 months since discharge. Wake before dawn, run 10 miles through the forest with Titan ranging ahead, nose working, ears alert. Return to the cabin for coffee from the French press and whatever needed fixing. The cabin had been neglected for years before he'd rented it, and the work of restoration gave his hands something to do. Afternoons he picked up odd jobs in town, cash work that didn't require much conversation, construction sites needing an extra set of hands, fishing boats needing deck crew for a day, the kind of work where competence spoke louder than words. 3 times a week, his routine included breakfast at the Pine Haven Diner, the only 24-hour establishment left in town. It occupied a corner lot on Main Street in a building that had probably been there since the 50s. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floor, long counter with swivel stools. The coffee was always fresh, the bacon crispy, and the waitress was kind without being intrusive. Her name was Sarah Chen. She stood maybe 5'4", with dark hair pulled back in a practical ponytail, and eyes that smiled even when her mouth didn't. She moved through the diner with efficient grace, remembering orders without writing them down, refilling coffee before cups emptied, treating every customer like they mattered. Marcus appreciated competence and quiet kindness. He always sat in the back corner booth where he could see both entrances, and Sarah never commented on it. Just brought his coffee, black, and his eggs over easy with wheat toast, asked if he needed anything else, and left him to his silence. Titan waited outside during these breakfasts, lying in the bed of Marcus's weathered 2015 Ford F-150. Town ordinance prohibited dogs in restaurants unless they were service animals, and Marcus didn't advertise Titan's training. Better to let people think he was just a well-behaved pet. Better to stay unremarkable. This particular morning arrived cold and gray, fog thick enough that headlights barely penetrated 10 feet ahead. Marcus drove the winding road into town at 0630, Titan standing in the truck bed with his nose into the wind, ears forward. The streets of Pinehaven were empty. Most businesses wouldn't open for hours. The diner glowed like a beacon, its windows casting yellow light into the fog. 3 vehicles sat in the small parking lot. A Honda sedan Marcus recognized as Sarah's, a Ford Explorer with municipal plates, a Dodge Charger with government-exempt tags that announced law enforcement even without the light bar. Marcus parked at the far end of the lot, backed in, facing out. Old habits. Titan hopped down and took position near the truck, settling onto his haunches but remaining alert. Through the diner windows, Marcus could see Sarah moving behind the counter. 2 men in police uniforms sat at the counter, backs to the window. Even from outside, their body language read aggressive. Shoulders too wide, gestures too expansive, occupying more space than necessary. Marcus entered through the front door. A bell chimed. The warmth hit him immediately, carrying the smell of coffee and bacon and something else underneath. Tension, fear. Sarah glanced up from behind the counter, and for just a flash, he saw something in her eyes. Relief, maybe, or hope. Then it was gone, replaced by her professional smile. The 2 officers didn't turn. The larger one, close-cropped gray hair and a neck thick with muscle gone soft, spoke loud enough to be heard clearly. His nameplate read Kowalski, Deputy Chief. The younger one next to him was massive, 6'3", at least, dark hair and the build of someone who lived in the gym. His nameplate said Brennan. Marcus took his usual booth, unzipped his jacket but didn't remove it, set his truck keys on the table within easy reach. Sarah approached with the coffee pot, and he saw it then. Her right hand trembled slightly. There was a tightness around her eyes. Sarah poured the coffee with practiced steadiness. But Marcus noticed the slight wince when the pot's weight pulled at her right forearm. She wore long sleeves despite the diner's warmth. When she set the cup down, their eyes met for half a second. He saw it clearly now. Fear. Not the ambient anxiety of a hard life, but the acute terror of someone being hunted. She started to speak, but Deputy Chief Kowalski's voice cut across the diner. "Sarah, sweetheart, you forget about us? Coffee's getting cold over here." The endearment dripped with false friendliness that made Marcus's jaw tighten. "Be right there," Sarah called back, voice steady. She walked to the counter, lifted the pot, began refilling their cups. Brennan, the younger officer, shifted on his stool, deliberately invading her space. She stepped back. He grinned. "Heard you been thinking about our conversation," Kowalski said, rotating his stool to face her directly. "About what's best for you and little Emma. Smart girl like you, you understand how things work in a small town." "I haven't decided anything yet," Sarah replied quietly. "Well, time's a factor, you know." Kowalski's tone remained light, conversational, but the threat underneath was unmistakable. "Opportunities don't wait forever, and accidents, well, they can happen to anyone, especially folks who don't have friends looking out for them." Marcus watched over the rim of his coffee cup. Every instinct honed over 12 years of combat operations screamed at him. Predators circling prey. The casual cruelty of men who believed themselves untouchable. He recognized the dynamic instantly. Corrupt authority leveraging power against someone with no recourse. He'd seen it in a dozen countries. The uniform changed, the language changed, but the fundamental equation remained constant. Strong terrorizing weak. System protecting its own. Not your fight, he told himself. Not your town, not your problem. Sarah murmured something Marcus couldn't hear, then retreated to the kitchen. The two officers laughed. Brennan said something crude that made Kowalski shake his head in mock disapproval before laughing harder. They finished their coffee, stood, adjusted duty belts heavy with equipment. Kowalski left a 20 on the counter for a $12 tad. Generosity as another form of control. See how good I am to you. They left through the front door. The bell chimed. 30 seconds later, engines started in the parking lot. The Explorer pulled out first, followed by the Charger. Marcus watched them disappear into the fog. Sarah emerged from the kitchen carrying his breakfast. Eggs over easy, bacon, wheat toast. Her professional mask was back in place, but the tremor in her hand remained. When she set the plate down, Marcus saw it. Her right sleeve had ridden up slightly, exposing her forearm. An angry red burn mark, fresh. Maybe 2 or 3 days old. Roughly circular, the exact diameter of a coffee pot's metal base. She noticed his gaze, quickly pulled the sleeve down. Anything else you need? No, thank you. Marcus kept his voice neutral. Didn't ask. Wasn't his business. She nodded and walked away. He ate mechanically, barely tasting the food. His mind worked the problem despite his determination not to get involved. The burn was deliberate. The conversation he'd overheard was threat, not negotiation. They wanted something from her. Property maybe, or silence about something she'd witnessed. And they were escalating. The timeline was compressing. Opportunities don't wait forever. That meant a deadline. He finished breakfast, left cash on the table with generous tip, and walked out. The fog had thickened. Titan stood immediately when Marcus approached, tail lowering slightly, ears forward. The dog had detected something. Marcus felt it too, a wrongness in the air. He drove back to the cabin, trying to push it from his mind. Spent the morning splitting firewood, the repetitive violence of the mall satisfying in a way that didn't require explanation. Titan patrolled the tree line, ranging out 50 yards, then returning, establishing a perimeter from habit and instinct. By noon, the fog had burned off slightly, leaving the world gray and damp. Marcus tried to settle into his afternoon routine, maintenance on the truck, cleaning his firearms, reading, but his mind kept returning to Sarah's face, to the burn on her arm, to the fear in her eyes, to Emma, whoever she was, little Emma, a daughter. At 1700 hours, he gave up pretending he could ignore it. He loaded Titan into the truck and drove back into town. The diner would be busier now, early dinner crowd. He didn't go inside. Instead, he parked across the street where he had clear line of sight to the entrance and the parking lot. Titan sat in the passenger seat, alert but calm. Just a look, Marcus told the dog. Just making sure she gets to her car safely. Then we go home. Titan's ear twitched. The dog didn't believe him either. They waited. The dinner rush came and went. Through the windows, Marcus watched Sarah move between tables. Around 1900 hours, the customers thinned. By 2000, the diner was nearly empty. Sarah began closing procedures, wiping down tables, refilling condiments. At 21:30, the last customer left. Sarah emerged from the diner at 2200, pulling a jacket tight against the cold. She walked to her Honda, keys in hand. Marcus started his engine, prepared to leave now that she was safely away. Then headlights pierced the darkness from the opposite direction. A Dodge Charger, moving fast. No light bar, but government plates, visible as it swung into the parking lot, cutting off Sarah's exit. She froze halfway to her car. 2 men got out. Brennan from the driver's side. Another officer Marcus didn't recognize from the passenger side. Shorter, wiry, with a tablet computer in his hand. Mendez, maybe, the tech guy. They approached Sarah with deliberate casualness. Marcus killed his engine. Beside him, Titan went rigid, a low growl building in his chest. The dog's hackles rose. Easy, Marcus murmured. Watch. Across the street, Brennan stood too close to Sarah, looming over her. His voice carried in the still night air. Chief wanted me to check on you, make sure you understood the situation. We're trying to help you, Sarah. Why are you making this difficult? Sarah's response was too quiet to hear, but her body language screamed defiance. Shoulders back, chin up, refusing to be cowed. Brennan's hand shot out, gripping her arm. The burned arm. Sarah gasped, tried to pull away. Brennan held tight, leaning in close. You got 48 hours. Then Emma goes into state custody for her own safety. Kids need stable homes. Mothers who make bad choices, well, they're unfit. Judge Harrigan agrees. He released her with a shove. Sarah stumbled back against her car. Mendez stepped forward, holding up the tablet. So she could see the screen. Got it all documented. Your financial instability, the dangerous hours you work, how Emma's alone after school for hours. Real concerning stuff. Sarah found her voice raw with desperation. I didn't see anything. I don't know what you think I saw, but I didn't. I won't say anything. Please, just leave us alone. Brennan laughed, the sound cruel in the darkness. Oh, sweetheart, it's way past that now. You saw Kowalski handling business. Can't put that genie back in the bottle. So you got two choices. Take the chief's generous offer for your property and relocate someplace far from here with enough money to start over. Or we make sure Emma gets a nice foster family while you fight charges that'll take years to clear, if you clear them. He moved closer again, voice dropping. 48 hours, Sarah. Clock's ticking. They climbed back into the Charger and drove off, taillights disappearing into the night. Sarah stood trembling beside her car for a long moment before her legs gave out. She collapsed against the Honda's door, sliding down until she sat on the cold pavement, arms wrapped around herself. Marcus was moving before conscious thought engaged. He crossed the street with Titan at his heel, footsteps silent on the asphalt. Sarah looked up sharply when his shadow fell across her, fear spiking in her eyes until she recognized him. You, she breathed. The breakfast regular. Marcus crouched down, keeping distance, making himself less threatening. Titan sat immediately, watching the woman with intelligent eyes. You're hurt. Do you need medical attention? I can't go to the hospital. They'll ask questions. File reports. That'll make it worse. She tried to stand, winced, clutched her arm. The sleeve had pulled back again, revealing not just the circular burn, but bruises, dark purple in the shape of fingers. When did this happen? 3 nights ago. I was closing up. They came in right before I locked the door. Kowalski said he wanted to talk about a business opportunity. I said no. He got angry. Brennan held me while Kowalski heated the coffee pot and then pressed it against my arm. Said it was a preview, that next time it would be Emma's arm. Her voice cracked. My daughter. She's 8 years old. She's all I have. Marcus's jaw tightened. The familiar cold descended. The combat calm that came when violence shifted from possibility to certainty. What did you see? Sarah looked at him, measuring, deciding. Then she spoke quickly, words tumbling out. 2 weeks ago, I was working the overnight shift. Around 2 a.m, a man pulled into the parking lot, stumbling, bleeding. He tried to get into the diner but collapsed. I called 911. Before the ambulance arrived, Kowalski and Brennan showed up. They dragged the man to their vehicle. He was screaming that they'd stolen from him, that he worked for people who would kill them. Kowalski hit him until he stopped screaming. They threw him in their trunk and drove off. I watched from the window. They saw me watching. The man, what happened to him? I don't know. He never showed up at the hospital. I checked. No reports of any assault victim that night. It's like he never existed. But I know what I saw. They beat a man unconscious and disappeared him. Marcus processed the information with tactical precision. Kowalski wasn't just corrupt. He was running an operation significant enough to involve kidnapping and likely murder. The man in the parking lot had mentioned people who would kill them, which suggested organized crime connections. Drug distribution, maybe, using the isolated logging. Gigging roads for transport, Kowalski had the badge, the authority, and apparently the local judge in his pocket. A complete protection racket. And Sarah was a witness who couldn't be allowed to testify. The property they want you to sell, where is it? My house. It's small, nothing special, but it sits on 5 acres that back up to old logging roads. My husband bought it before he died. He was a fishing boat captain. Insurance paid off the mortgage. It's the only thing I own free and clear. Kowalski's been pressuring me to sell for 6 months, but it got worse after that night. Marcus stood, offered his hand. Sarah took it, letting him pull her to her feet. You can't go home. If they're escalating this fast, they won't wait 48 hours. They'll move tonight or tomorrow to create leverage. Where's Emma now? With my neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. She watches her when I work late. Call her. Tell her you're picking Emma up early. Don't explain. Just get her. Then what? I can't run. I have no money, nowhere to go. And if I run, they'll say I'm an unfit mother who abandoned her daughter. I'll never get her back. Marcus made the decision, the one he'd known he would make from the moment he saw the burn on her arm. Some lines couldn't be uncrossed. Some evils couldn't be ignored. He'd come to Pine Haven seeking peace, but peace wasn't the absence of conflict. It was protecting the innocent when predators came for them. You come with me, both of you. I have a cabin, isolated, defensible. You stay there while I figure this out. You don't even know me. Why would you help? Because they picked the wrong person to terrorize. Marcus pulled out his phone, handed it to her. Make the call. 20 minutes later, they pulled up to a small house 3 blocks from the diner. Sarah ran inside, emerging 5 minutes later with an 8-year-old girl holding a stuffed rabbit. Emma had her mother's dark hair and eyes that were too old for her face. She climbed into the back of Marcus's truck without question, clutching the rabbit. Sarah buckled her in, then slid into the front passenger seat. Titan turned from his position behind the seats, sniffing the girl carefully. Emma's eyes went wide. He's huge. His name is Titan. He won't hurt you. Can I pet him? Titan. Freund. The German command meant friend. The dog's tail wagged once. Emma reached out tentatively, touched his head. Titan leaned into her hand, and something in the girl's frightened face softened. Marcus drove through the night, taking fire roads and back routes, watching his mirrors. No headlights followed. They reached the cabin at 0100. He led them inside, started a fire in the wood stove. Sarah looked around at the sparse furnishings. The military precision of the space. You're not just some drifter, are you? Navy. Retired. What did you do in the Navy? Marcus met her eyes. I found people who didn't want to be found, and I protected people who couldn't protect themselves. Sarah's shoulders sagged with relief so profound it was almost collapse. Can you protect us? Marcus glanced at Emma, curled on the couch with Titan lying on the floor beside her, the girl's hand resting on the dog's head. The child hadn't spoken beyond asking about the dog. Shell-shocked, traumatized. 8 years old and already learning that the world was cruel, and the people who were supposed to protect you sometimes were the ones you needed protection from. He looked back at Sarah. Yes, they won't touch either of you again. Marcus gave Sarah the bedroom. She protested weakly, but he insisted, explaining that Emma needed stability. Stability and rest. He would take the couch. Sleep was a negotiable commodity for him anyway. Once Sarah had settled Emma into bed, she returned to the main room, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. Tell me everything, Marcus said. From the beginning, every detail you remember about that night, about Kowalski, about anyone else involved. Sarah sank into the chair across from him. For the next hour, she talked. Marcus listened with absolute focus, committing every detail to memory. The man in the parking lot had been Hispanic, mid-30s, wearing expensive clothes. He'd been screaming in Spanish and English, saying he worked for the Sinaloa people, that Kowalski had stolen $300,000 from a shipment. Kowalski had beaten him methodically, professionally, while Brennan watched the road. A third officer had been there too, the one with the tablet, Mendez. He'd been filming everything on his phone. Filming it? Like he was documenting it? Or maybe blackmail? I don't know, but he was very deliberate about getting angles. Marcus filed that detail away. Mendez was creating insurance or leverage, corruption within corruption. That suggested paranoia, lack of trust even among the conspirators. Exploitable. Sarah described 6 months of escalating pressure. Kowalski had first approached her with a generous offer for her property, double the assessed value. When she declined, he'd returned with concerns about her business license, health code violations at the diner where she worked, questions about her fitness as a single mother. Each visit more threatening than the last. Other people in town had sold to him. The mechanic who'd owned the garage. The woman who'd run the bookstore. Both had left Pine Haven within weeks of selling, leaving no forwarding information. He's consolidating control, Marcus said. Your property gives him access to the logging roads without going through town. Perfect for moving product without witnesses. He's been cleaning up loose ends. You're the last one. What product? Drugs. Given the Sinaloa connection, probably cocaine, heroin, fentanyl moving up from California. Pine Haven's isolated, dying, with a police force he controls. It's a perfect waypoint. $1 million operation at least. Sarah's face paled. That man he took, he's dead, isn't he? Most likely. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, voice barely above a whisper. What am I going to do? I can't prove any of this. It's my word against a deputy chief with 28 years on the force. Judge Harrigan will dismiss anything I try to file. And even if I could prove it, they'll kill me before it gets to trial. They've already demonstrated they're willing to murder. Marcus stood, walked to the window. Dawn was still hours away. Titan lay near the bedroom door, positioned so he could see both the entrance and the hallway. Guard position. The dog hadn't needed to be told. You're not going to do anything. You're going to stay here with Emma, out of sight. I'm going to gather evidence, contact people who can act on it, and dismantle Kowalski's operation. You're one man. He turned to face her. I'm a Navy SEAL with 12 years of experience conducting direct action raids against entrenched enemy positions. Kowalski is a small-town corrupt cop who's gotten comfortable. He has 4 officers under his control out of a 12-person department. I've faced worse odds in Kandahar on a Tuesday. They'll kill you. They'll try. Meanwhile, across town, in a house on the lake that should have been far beyond the means of a public servant, Deputy Chief Frank Kowalski paced, said his office. The room was decorated with expensive furniture, a wet bar stocked with top-shelf liquor, and a view of dark water through floor-to-ceiling windows. He held his phone to his ear, listening to Brennan's report. She wasn't at her house. Neighbor says Sarah picked up the kid around 22:30 and hasn't been back. Car's not in her driveway. Diner manager says she didn't show for her morning shift. She's rabbited. Kowalski's jaw tightened. Running was not acceptable. Running meant panic, which meant unpredictability. And worse, it meant she might run to someone with authority. State police, FBI. Find her, check motels, friends, family. She can't have gone far. She has no money and a kid to worry about. There's something else, Brennan said. Mendez pulled security footage from the diner parking lot last night. There was someone watching when we talked to her. Guy in a Ford F-150, parked across the street. After we left, he approached her. They talked. Then she left with him. Description. Big guy, military posture, dark hair, trucks registered to a Marcus Reed. Address listed as the Olve Hansen cabin up Fire Road 7. Kowalski pulled up his mental map of the area. Fire Road 7 was 8 miles outside town, isolated, accessible only by 4-wheel drive. He moved to his desk computer, typed the name into the law enforcement database. Marcus Reed's record populated. 37 years old, Navy for 12 years, service record mostly redacted, but the designation was clear. Special Operations, SEALs, multiple deployments. Honorably discharged 14 months ago. Current address confirmed as Pine Haven. We've got a problem, Kowalski said slowly. What kind of problem? The kind that shoots back. This Reed is a trained operator. Sarah must have told him her story. He's protecting her. So we go up there and take them both. 3 against 1. We're armed and we've got the badge. He can't touch us. Kowalski wanted to believe it was that simple. But 14 years of running this operation had taught him that underestimating threats was how people ended up dead or in prison. No, we don't move on him directly yet. First, we find out who he is beyond the service record. Does he have connections? Is he talking to anyone? Mendez, I want full surveillance on him. Phone records, financial, everything. That'll take time. Mendez said, his voice coming through on speaker. We have 48 hours before Sarah's deadline expires anyway. Use that time. Meanwhile, lean on the neighbor, Mrs. Patterson. Make it clear that harboring a fugitive is a crime. Put out a BOLO for Sarah's vehicle. Make it official. Child endangerment. We're concerned for Emma's safety. Mother displaying erratic behavior. Judge Harrigan? I'll call him in the morning. Get an emergency custody order. Make this legal so when we do take Emma, nobody questions it. Sarah will have to surface to fight it, and when she does, we grab her. Brennan laughed. And the seal? Kowalski stared at the service photo on his screen. Marcus Reed looked back with calm, measuring eyes. If he interferes with a lawful custody action, he's obstructing justice. That gives us legal authority to use force, deadly force if necessary. No matter his training, he's one man, and this is my town. He disconnected the call and poured himself 3 fingers of scotch, expensive single malt, bought with money from the operation he'd built over 14 years. It had started small, looking the other way when certain shipments moved through, then active assistance, then partnership. The Sinaloa cartel paid generously for or secure routes, and Pine Heaven provided exactly that. Kowalski had recruited carefully, Brennan for muscle, Mendez for technical work, 2 others for patrols and coverage. Judge Harrigan had gambling debts that made him pliable. The mayor was simply stupid and easily fooled. It had been perfect, until Sarah Chen had witnessed the interrogation of that cartel courier who tried to skim. Kowalski had handled it, disposed of the body in the deep woods where it would never be found, but Sarah had seen, and witnesses couldn't be tolerated. He drained the scotch. One seal didn't change the fundamental equation. Kowalski had resources, authority, and home field advantage. Reed would learn that heroism died hard in the real world. Marcus spent the hours before dawn fortifying the cabin. He moved with practiced efficiency, transforming the space into a defensible position. He repositioned furniture to create barriers and firing lanes, checked sight lines from every window, identified approach routes, and cleared fields of fire. From the storage shed, he retrieved equipment he'd hoped never to use again. Body armor, combat load-bearing vest, his service M4 carbine, legally owned, meticulously maintained, 300 rounds of ammunition, night vision monocular, trauma kit. Sarah watched from the doorway, Emma still sleeping behind her. You really think they'll come here? Yes. The question is when and how many. Marcus loaded magazines with smooth automatic movements, muscle memory from thousands of repetitions. Kowalski's smart enough to research me first. He'll find my service record, know what he's facing. That'll make him cautious. But he's also arrogant. 14 years running this operation without consequences has made him believe he's untouchable. That arrogance will push him to act. What do I do? If shooting starts, you take Emma into the bedroom, barricade the door, and stay low. Titan will guard you. He won't let anyone through that door who isn't me. And if they kill you? Marcus looked at her directly. They won't. At 0800, a vehicle approached up Fire Road 7. Marcus heard it long before it was visible, the engine note carrying through the forest. He moved to the window, using the edge of the curtain for concealment. A Pine Haven PD Explorer. Single occupant. Not an assault. A scout. The vehicle stopped 50 yards from the cabin. A uniformed officer emerged. Not Brennan or Mendez. Someone Marcus hadn't seen before. Young, mid-20s, uncertain body language. The officer approached cautiously, hand near his sidearm, but not on it. Marcus opened the door before the officer could knock. Titan stood at his side, silent, radiating controlled menace. The officer's eyes went to the dog, then to Marcus. Reading the threat correctly. Marcus Reed? Yes. I'm Officer Thompson. Deputy Chief Kowalski sent me to conduct a welfare check. We have a bolo out for Sarah Chen and her daughter Emma. There's concern for the child's safety. Her neighbor reported she left with an unknown man last night. Sarah and Emma are fine. They're here voluntarily. Thompson shifted uncomfortably. Sir, I need to verify that. Can you ask Miss Chen to come out? No. Sir, if you're preventing me from conducting a lawful welfare check, that's obstruction. Marcus studied the young officer. Thompson was nervous, following orders, but not part of the corruption. His body language was all wrong for a conspirator. He didn't have the casual cruelty of Brennan or the cold calculation of Kowalski. Just a scared kid with a badge trying to do his job. Officer Thompson, how long have you? You been with Pine Haven PD? 11 months. Sir, I really need to. Has Deputy Chief Kowalski ever asked you to do anything that made you uncomfortable? To look the other way, falsify a report, lose evidence? Thompson's face went carefully neutral. Too carefully. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. You're a decent cop stuck in a corrupt department. You've seen things that don't add up. Money appearing where it shouldn't. Cases that disappear. Kowalski's house on the lake. But you've kept quiet because you need the job and speaking up gets you nowhere. Am I wrong? Thompson was silent for a long moment. Then, voice barely above a whisper, what's happening here? Sarah Chen witnessed Kowalski and Brennan kidnap and beat a man 2 weeks ago. That man never made it to a hospital. She's a witness to murder, and Kowalski is trying to silence her. He's using Emma as leverage. That welfare check you're doing? It's laying groundwork for an illegal custody grab. That's a serious accusation. It's the truth, and when federal authorities arrive, anyone who helped Kowalski will go down with him. So you have a choice. Follow orders and become an accessory, or walk away and stay clean. Thompson's hand moved away from his sidearm. If what you're saying is true, why haven't you contacted state police, FBI? I will. I'm gathering evidence first. But I need time, which means Kowalski can't know where Sarah is. He already knows. That's why he sent me. He wanted confirmation you have her. Now he's got it. Then you tell him exactly what you saw. I answered the door. I confirmed Sarah and Emma are here voluntarily and safe. You had no legal authority to enter without a warrant, so you left. That gives him nothing he didn't already have. Thompson looked past Marcus into the cabin, seeing the tactical preparation, the weapons, the readiness. He looked at Titan, at Marcus's calm, weathered face. He made his decision. I'll report what I saw. But Reed, if you're wrong about this, if you're the one who's dangerous, I'll come back with everything we have. If I'm wrong, I'll deserve it. Thompson walked back to his Explorer and drove away. Marcus watched until the dust settled, then returned inside. Sarah stood pale and shaking. He'll tell Kowalski we're here, which means we have maybe 6 hours before they move. Thompson will report. Kowalski will spend time planning, gathering his people. He won't rush this. 6 hours to do what? Make contact with someone who can help. Marcus pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts he hadn't called in months, and selected one. The phone rang twice before a familiar voice answered. Reed, that really you? Hey Dutch, I need a favor. Special Agent Martin Dutch, FBI Portland Field Office, had served in Marine Recon before joining the Bureau. He and Marcus had crossed paths on joint operations in Afghanistan. Different branches, same war, mutual respect born from shared violence. What kind of favor? Dutch's tone shifted to professional alertness. Marcus laid it out in concise detail. Kowalski's operation, the disappeared courier, Sarah's testimony, the property consolidation, the corruption extending to local judiciary. Dutch listened without interrupting, years of investigative experience letting him sort signal from noise. That's a significant accusation against a deputy chief with nearly 3 decades of service. I know what I'm telling you. Sarah Chen is a credible witness. She saw a kidnapping and assault. The victim never appeared in any hospital or booking system. That's murder and conspiracy. Kowalski's. Wolski's been running drugs through Pinehaven using his badge as cover. He's got 4 officers and a judge compromised. I need federal intervention before he kills the witness. Where's the witness now? With me, protected. Dutch was quiet for a moment. Reed, are you operational? Because if you're running some kind of vigilante. I'm protecting a civilian who came to me for help. Everything I'm doing is legal. But Kowalski's escalating. He sent an officer to my location this morning for a welfare check. That's laying groundwork. He'll move on Sarah within hours, probably with a fraudulent custody order. Once he has Emma, Sarah will have to surrender or watch her daughter disappear into the system. Can you get Sarah to Portland? We can put her in protective custody, take a full statement. Not without going through Kowalski's territory. He's got the roads watched. And if Sarah runs, he'll claim she's fleeing with Emma, which plays into his narrative of unfit mother. We need him caught in the act. You need to be here when he moves. Dutch exhaled slowly. That's asking me to set up a federal operation based on one witness statement from someone I've never interviewed in another agent's territory without going through proper channels. I'm asking you to trust me. Have I ever lied to you? No. But you've also been out for 14 months. PTSD, nightmares. The whole package from what I heard. How do I know this isn't paranoia or projection? Marcus looked across the room at Sarah, who sat with her arm around Emma. The little girl clutched her stuffed rabbit, eyes too old, too frightened. He looked at the burn mark on Sarah's arm, visible even from across the room. He thought about the casual cruelty in Brennan's voice threatening a child. Because I'm looking at a woman with a burn mark shaped like a coffee pot base and an 8-year-old who hasn't spoken a word since I met her. Because I ran Kowalski through the database and his financials don't match his lifestyle. Because a man vanished from a diner parking lot and nobody investigated. And because you know me, Dutch. You know I don't make this call unless it's real. Long silence. Then Dutch spoke, voice carrying the weight of decision. I can be there in 3 hours with a team. But Reed, if this goes sideways, if you've misread this situation, it ends both our careers. It won't go sideways. Just get here. Marcus provided GPS coordinates, detailed description of the cabin's location, and tactical situation. Dutch confirmed he'd bring 4 agents, surveillance equipment, and arrest authority. They'd set up a perimeter and wait for Kowalski to make his move. When he did, they'd have him on attempted kidnapping, abuse of authority, and a dozen other charges that would crack open the entire conspiracy. Marcus disconnected and turned to Sarah. Federal agents will be here in 3 hours. When Kowalski comes, they'll arrest him. You'll be safe. What if he comes before they arrive? Then I stop him. At 1300 hours, Titan's ears snapped forward, low growl building in his chest. Marcus moved to the window. 3 vehicles approaching up Fire Road 7, the Dodge Charger in front. 2 explorers behind, at least 6 men. Kowalski was bringing everyone. Sarah, take Emma into the bedroom now. Lock the door. Stay away from windows. Sarah grabbed her daughter and ran. Marcus heard the bedroom door close, the lock engage. He pulled on his tactical vest, checked his weapons. The N4 stayed slung across his back, for now. His sidearm, a Sig Sauer P226, came out of its holster. 15 rounds plus 1 in the chamber. Titan, here. The dog moved to his side instantly. Wacha, guard. Titan took position between Marcus and the bedroom door. The vehicle stopped 30 yards out. Doors opened. Kowalski emerged from the Charger, flanked by Brennan and Mendez. 3 more officers from the Explorers. All in uniform, all armed. Kowalski held a document in his hand. Marcus stepped onto the porch, leaving the door open behind him. Sidearm held low against his thigh. Visible, but not overtly threatening. The range was 30 yards. Easy pistol range for someone with his training. Impossible for average shooters. The officers' hands moved toward their weapons, but Kowalski raised a hand, stopping them. Marcus Reed, Kowalski called out, voice carrying calm authority. I'm Deputy Chief Frank Kowalski. I have a court order granting emergency custody of Emma Chen to Child Protective Services. The mother, Sarah Chen, has been deemed unfit. I'm here to execute that order. You're required by law to turn over the child. Marcus didn't move. Show me the warrant. Kowalski walked forward slowly, document extended. He stopped 10 feet away, close enough for conversation, far enough to maintain tactical space. Marcus took the paper with his left hand, keeping his right on the pistol. The document looked official. Judge Harrigan's signature, dated today. Emergency custody based on concerns of child endangerment and maternal instability. This is fraudulent, Marcus said flatly. That's not your determination to make. A judge signed it. It's lawful. Interfering with its execution is a felony. You burned Sarah with a coffee pot 3 days ago. You threatened to do the same to Emma. You're trying to silence a witness to murder. Nothing about this is lawful. Kowalski's expression didn't change, but his eyes went cold. Those are serious accusations. Do you have proof? Sarah's testimony, the bone mark on her arm. And federal agents who are very interested in your operation. That landed. Kowalski's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. What federal agents? FBI. They'll be here shortly. You should wait for them. I'm sure they'll want to discuss the $300,000 you stole from a Sinaloa courier before you murdered him. Behind Kowalski, Brennan's hand moved to his sidearm. Kowalski's raised hand stopped him again, but barely. The deputy chief's calculated facade cracked slightly. You're making a mistake, Reed. You're one man with a dishonorable discharge and PTSD. Honorable discharge. Check your facts. Protecting a woman who's mentally unstable and dangerous to her child. You're outnumbered 6-1. You can't win this. So here's what happens. You hand over Emma Chen. We leave. Nobody gets hurt. You can tell your story to whoever you want. But by then, Sarah will be in custody and Emma will be safe with the state. No. Last chance, Seal. Walk away. Marcus's voice dropped, calm and absolutely certain. You're the ones who should walk away. Last chance. Kowalski's face hardened. He stepped back, nodded to Brennan. He's obstructing justice. Take him into custody. Use necessary force. Brennan drew his weapon. So did Mendez. The other 3 officers fanned out, hands on their sidearms, but not yet drawn. Brennan raised his pistol toward Marcus. Federal agents, drop your weapons. The shout came from the tree line. 4 figures emerged from concealment. FBI windbreakers over tactical gear, rifles raised. Dutch stepped forward, badge held high in his left hand, weapon in his right. Deputy Chief Kowalski, You and your officers are under arrest. Drop your weapons and put your hands on your heads. Now. Kowalski froze, face draining of color. Brennan swung his pistol toward the agents. Mistake. Dutch's rifle barked once. Brennan's weapon spun from his hand, the officer crying out and clutching his wrist. Not a kill shot. A disarm. Professional precision. Next one goes center mass, Dutch called. Weapons down, all of you. The 3 junior officers dropped their sidearms immediately, hands rising. Mendez hesitated, looked at Kowalski, then carefully placed his pistol on the ground. Kowalski remained motionless, document still clutched in his hand, his entire world collapsing in real time. On your knees, Dutch ordered. Hands behind your heads. Interlace your fingers. 2 agents moved forward, zip-tying wrists with practiced efficiency. Dutch approached Kowalski, who still stood frozen. Deputy Chief Frank Kowalski, you're under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, kidnapping, drug trafficking, abuse of authority, witness intimidation, and assault. You have the right to remain silent. This is entrapment, Kowalski said, voice tight. You set this up. That's illegal. We responded to a credible witness report of corruption and murder. What we found was you attempting to execute a fraudulent court order to kidnap a child for purposes of witness intimidation. Everything we've observed in the last 5 minutes gives us probable cause for about 30 federal charges. And that's before we start digging into your finances, your operation, and the body you buried in the woods. Kowalski's face went gray. I want my lawyer. You'll get one. After we book you in federal custody. Dutch turned to Marcus. Reed, you good? Marcus lowered his weapon, safed it, holstered it. Yeah, thanks for the timing. We've been in position for 40 minutes. Surveillance van half a mile down the road. Recorded everything. The threats, the false warrant. Him ordering his officers to use force. It's all documented. Dutch looked toward the cabin. The witness, Sarah Chen. Can we talk to her? Marcus walked to the door, knocked twice. Sarah, it's safe. Come out. The bedroom door opened. Sarah emerged slowly, Emma clutched against her side. The little girl's eyes went wide, seeing the armed agents, the officers on their knees. Sarah looked at Marcus, then at Kowalski kneeling in the dirt, and something broke inside her. Relief so profound it manifested as tears streaming down her face. Dutch holstered his weapon, softened his posture. Miss Chen, I'm Special Agent Martin Dutch, FBI. You're safe now. Nobody's going to hurt you or your daughter. We need to take your statement about everything you witnessed, everything Kowalski did. Can you do that? Sarah nodded, unable to speak. Emma finally found her voice, small and fragile. Mommy, are the bad policemen going away? Yes, baby. They're going away forever. Over the next 3 hours, federal vehicles filled the small clearing around Marcus's cabin. A mobile command post. Evidence technicians. More agents. Sarah gave her statement in detail, everything recorded and documented. Emma was examined by a child psychologist who confirmed signs of trauma, but no physical abuse. The burn on Sarah's arm was photographed, measured, documented as evidence of assault. Dutch's team executed search warrants simultaneously on Kowalski's house, the police station, and Judge Harrigan's chambers. They found financial records showing deposits totaling $2 million over 5 years, encrypted communications with cartel contacts, photos and videos on Mendez's devices documenting drug shipments, money transfers, and the assault on the courier Sarah had witnessed. Judge Harrigan's gambling debts and the leverage Kowalski held over him. A conspiracy spanning years, all carefully documented by men who'd believed themselves untouchable. By 1800 hours, 8 people were in federal custody. Kowalski, Brennan, Mendez, 2 other corrupt officers, Judge Harrigan, and 2 civilian conspirators who'd helped move product. The clean officers in Pine Haven PD, including Thompson, were interviewed and cleared. Thompson's statement corroborated that he'd suspected corruption but lacked evidence or authority to act. As the sun set over the Pacific, casting orange light through the trees, Dutch stood with Marcus on the cabin's porch. Titan lay nearby, Emma sitting beside him, small hand buried in his fur. The girl had barely left the dog's side all afternoon. We'll need Sarah in Portland for depositions, Dutch said. Protective custody until trial. Could be months. She'll cooperate. She's strong, thanks to you. If you hadn't called, if you hadn't protected her, Kowalski would have disappeared both of them. We'd have found their bodies in a few years. Maybe. Marcus watched Emma whisper something to Titan, the dog's tail wagging slowly. I didn't do anything special. just stood between predators and prey. That's exactly what makes it special. Most people look away. You didn't. Dutch paused. FBI could use someone with your skill set. Investigative division. Protective operations. Pays decent. Benefits are solid. You'd be good at it. I'll think about it. You do that. Dutch extended his hand. Marcus shook it. Stay in touch, Reed. World needs more people willing to stand up. The federal convoy departed as night fell, taking the prisoners and evidence. Sarah and Emma went with them, heading to Portland and safety. Sarah hugged Marcus before she left, fierce and grateful. I'll never forget what you did. You gave me my life back. You gave Emma her childhood back. Stay strong. Testify. Make sure they never hurt anyone else. I will. I promise. Emma approached shyly, still holding her stuffed rabbit. She looked up at Marcus with those two old eyes. Thank you for saving us. You and Titan. Marcus crouched to her level. You're very brave, Emma. Braver than you know. Don't forget that. She hugged him quickly, then ran back to her mother. They climbed into a federal SUV and drove away, taillights disappearing into the darkness. Marcus stood alone in the clearing, Titan at his side. The silence returned, the isolation he'd sought, but it felt different now. Not like escape, like peace earned through action rather than retreat. 3 months later, spring arrived on the Oregon coast with cautious warmth. The fog still rolled in each evening, but the days grew longer, and green pushed through the gray. Marcus stood on his porch, watching the forest wake from winter, coffee steaming in his hand. Titan dozed in a patch of sunlight, content and relaxed, in a way the dog hadn't been during their first year of civilian life. The nightmares still came, but less frequently. Marcus slept 4 hours most nights now, instead of 2. The hypervigilance remained, the constant threat assessment, but he'd learned to channel it into awareness rather than anxiety. He'd accepted that some parts of him would always be the operator who'd spent 12 years hunting in the dark. The difference was understanding that those parts could serve purpose beyond war. His phone buzzed, a text from Sarah. She sent updates weekly, photos of Emma, news about the trial. This message included a picture of Emma smiling, genuinely smiling, holding an award from her. Air News School, Student of the Month. The accompanying text read, she's talking again, laughing, being 8 years old. The therapist says she's healing. We both are. Thank you will never be enough, but thank you, always. Marcus smiled, typed back a brief response, then opened the email that had arrived that morning. Federal Prosecutor's Office. The trial date was set. Kowalski and his co-conspirators would face justice in 6 weeks. The evidence was overwhelming. Financial records, recorded conversations, physical evidence, and Sarah's testimony all combined into an unbeatable case. The prosecutor estimated Kowalski would receive 30 years minimum. The others would take plea deals, but even those meant decades in federal prison. Pine Haven was healing too. The corruption had been excised like a tumor. State police had provided interim coverage while the department rebuilt with clean officers. Thompson had been promoted to interim chief. His integrity finally recognized and rewarded. Small businesses were reopening. People who'd been driven out were returning. The town had a future again. A second email waited below the first. FBI Portland Field Office. Dutch had sent it a week ago, and Marcus had been avoiding opening it. He knew what it contained. A formal offer. Position in the FBI's Critical Incident Response Group. Protective operations. High-risk witness security. Tactical investigation. Everything he was trained for, repurposed for domestic justice instead of foreign battlefields. He opened it, read the details. Salary, benefits, duty stations. It was everything he'd told Dutch he'd think about. And he had thought about it, for 3 months, weighing peace against purpose. The truth was, isolation hadn't healed him. Action had. Standing between Sarah and the men who wanted to destroy her hadn't triggered his PTSD. It had reminded him why he'd become a SEAL in the first place. Not for the violence, but for the protection. Not to destroy, but to defend those who couldn't defend themselves. Marcus looked at Titan. What do you think? Ready to go back to work? Titan's ear twitched. The dog stood, stretched, moved to Marcus's side. Ready. Always ready. Marcus drafted his response to Dutch. Acceptance of the position. Start date. Questions about housing near the Portland office that would accept a 95-pound tactical dog. He hit send before he could second-guess himself. His phone rang within 5 minutes. Dutch's voice carried satisfaction. Knew you'd come around. You're not built for retirement, Reed. Apparently not. When do I start? 2 weeks. That work? It works. They discussed logistics, training, first assignments. When the call ended, Marcus felt something he hadn't experienced in 14 months. Anticipation. Purpose. The sense that his life was moving forward instead of treading water while he waited to drown. He spent the afternoon packing, sorting through the minimal possessions he'd accumulated. Most would fit in the truck. The cabin's owner would be happy to have it back for summer rentals. Marcus left it cleaner than he'd found it, repairs complete. A note thanking the owner for the sanctuary it had provided. At dusk, he drove into Pine Haven one last time. The diner glowed with warm light. New management, but the same coffee, same bacon, same sense of community gathering place. He parked, left Titan in the truck, went inside. Thompson sat at the counter, in civilian clothes, off-duty, eating pie. He looked up when Marcus entered, smiled, stood and extended his hand. Heard you're leaving. Wanted to thank you before you did what you did, standing up. When the rest of us were too scared, it changed everything. Marcus shook his hand. You would have done the same. You were already doing it, staying clean in a corrupt system. That takes its own kind of courage. Maybe, but you're the one who broke it open. Town owes you. Town doesn't owe me anything. Just glad Sarah and Emma are safe. Thompson returned to his pie. Marcus ordered coffee to go, left cash on the counter, and walked back into the night. The fog was rolling in, thick and familiar. He breathed deep, tasting salt and pine, committing it to memory. The drive back to the cabin took 20 minutes. Tomorrow he'd leave for Portland, start the next chapter. Tonight, he had one last evening in the place where he'd learned that running from your past didn't heal it. Only facing it did. Only using what you'd become for something that mattered. Inside the cabin, Marcus lit a fire in the wood stove one final time. Titan lay nearby, watching with intelligent eyes as Marcus pulled out his journal. He'd started keeping it on the advice of a VA therapist, documenting thoughts and experiences. Most entries were dark, processing trauma and loss. But tonight's would be different. He wrote about Sarah's strength, Emma's resilience, the importance of standing up even when the odds seemed impossible. About how one person willing to act could break a cycle of fear and corruption. About finding purpose not in seeking peace through isolation, but in carrying peace to those who needed it most. The last lines read, "Somewhere out there, someone is waiting for protection they don't even know is coming. Someone is facing evil that seems unstoppable. And when they need it most, when hope seems gone, someone will stand between them and the darkness. Not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because it's right. Because being a warrior isn't about seeking violence, it's about standing up when others can't. And maybe that's what I've been searching for. Not escape from what I was trained to do, but understanding why I was trained to do it." He closed the journal, set it aside. Outside, an owl called through the fog. Titan's ears perked, tracking the sound, but the dog remained calm. No threats tonight, just the forest being itself. Marcus stood, walked to the window, looked out at the darkness. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new battles. But tonight he was at peace. The kind of peace that came from knowing your purpose and choosing to embrace it. Titan padded over, leaned against his leg. Marcus rested his hand on the dog's head. "One last night here, buddy. Then we go where we're needed." The fire crackled, the night deepened, and in the morning, Marcus, Reed, and Titan would leave for Portland, ready to answer the call again. Because somewhere out there, evil would threaten the innocent, and when it did, a Navy SEAL and his dog would be there to stop it. If this story touched your heart, if it reminded you that courage and integrity still matter in a world that often seems dark, please subscribe to this channel and hit the like button. Tell us in the comments what you would have done in Marcus's situation. Would you have looked away, or would you have stood up? Your answer matters. Because every day, real people face impossible choices between safety and what's right. May you find the courage to stand when standing is needed. May you protect those who cannot protect themselves. And may you remember that sometimes all it takes to change everything is one person willing to say no to evil. Because somewhere out there, someone is waiting for a hero. And when duty calls, true warriors answer, always.